Christ Oil Mysteries, written and published by Ngasline. The human body harbors an extraordinary biological process that ancient mystics and modern scientists are only beginning to comprehend. At the core of this sacred science lies the production and transformation of a remarkable substance known as Christ oil, a divine elixir produced within the human nervous system that holds the key to expanded consciousness and spiritual awakening. Central to understanding this process is the claustrum, a thin sheet of neurons buried deep within the brain that neuroscientists have dubbed the conductor of consciousness. This mysterious structure acts as a gateway between ordinary awareness and higher states of being. The claustrum orchestrates neural activity across different brain regions, allowing for the integration and synthesis of sensory information, thoughts, and spiritual experiences. Ancient wisdom traditions recognized its significance long before modern science, referring to it through various metaphors and symbols in sacred texts. This biological alchemy follows specific cosmic rhythms, particularly the lunar solar cycles that influence the production and movement of cerebrospinal fluid throughout the nervous system. Just as the moon affects Earth's tidal waters, these celestial bodies impact the subtle energetic flows within our own biology. The monthly lunar cycle corresponds to specific phases of this internal process, with the full moon marking peak periods of energetic potential. The generation of sacred fluids within the body begins with ordinary physical substances that undergo remarkable transformations through a process that bridges matter and consciousness. Starting in the reproductive system, these vital essences are gradually refined and transmuted as they ascend through the spine, ultimately reaching the brain where they undergo their final metamorphosis. This journey of biological sublimation was known to ancient mystery schools, who encoded this knowledge in myths and religious symbolism. Within the brain, these refined substances interact with specialized neural tissues to produce what the ancient called Christ oil, a purified form of cerebrospinal fluid with unique properties that affect consciousness. Modern research has revealed that cerebrospinal fluid contains various bioactive compounds that influence neural function, including proteins, peptides, and other signaling molecules. When properly activated through specific practices, this enhanced fluid can promote heightened states of awareness and accelerated neural evolution. The sacred science involves understanding how to activate and direct these processes through conscious intention, breathing practices, meditation, and energetic techniques passed down through esoteric traditions. This is not merely a mechanical or chemical process, but one that requires the integration of body, mind, and spirit. The practitioner must maintain specific lifestyle practices and ethical disciplines to create the proper internal conditions for this alchemy to occur. The significance of Christ oil extends beyond individual transformation. As more humans awaken to and activate these latent capabilities, it contributes to the evolution of collective consciousness. This biological process represents nature's built-in mechanism for human transcendence, a bridge between our current state of consciousness and our higher potential. Understanding and working with these inner processes allows us to participate consciously in our own evolution. Ancient traditions worldwide recognized this sacred science, though they described it through different metaphors and symbols according to their cultural context. Whether called soma, amrita, or the philosopher's stone, they all pointed to this same biological reality. Modern scientific discoveries about the nervous system, particularly regarding the role of cerebrospinal fluid and the claustrum, are now beginning to validate these ancient insights from a contemporary perspective. The sacred science of Christ oil represents a profound interface between biology and consciousness, matter and spirit, science and mysticism. It reveals how the human body contains within itself the mechanisms for transformation and transcendence. This knowledge, long preserved in esoteric traditions, is now emerging into wider awareness as humanity awakens to its full potential. The divine merit of glands. The intricate dance between the pineal and pituitary glands represents one of the most profound mysteries in spiritual neuroscience. These two master glands, symbolically represented as Joseph and Mary in esoteric traditions, orchestrate a divine union that catalyzes the production of Christ oil within the human brain. The pineal gland, often called the third eye or spiritual antenna, rests like a tiny pine cone in the center of the brain. This remarkable organ serves as a bridge between physical and spiritual realms, producing melatonin and other vital compounds that regulate our consciousness and perception. In ancient traditions, the pineal was associated with Joseph, representing the masculine solar aspects of our being. It responds directly to light and maintains our crucial circadian rhythms, but its deeper purpose extends far beyond these basic functions. Working in harmony with the pineal is the pituitary gland, known as the master gland of the endocrine system. Symbolically represented as Mary, the pituitary embodies the feminine, lunar aspects of consciousness. This gland produces numerous hormones that regulate growth, metabolism, and reproduction. Its position in the sella turcica, a saddle-shaped depression in the sphenoid bone, places it in perfect alignment with the pineal gland above. The cosmic charging process occurs when these two glands synchronize their activities through specific spiritual practices and natural cycles. This process involves the careful timing of meditation, breathwork, and energy cultivation techniques with celestial movements, particularly the phases of the moon and solar positions. The ancients understood that these astronomical alignments created optimal conditions for glandular activation and the production of sacred substances within the brain. Glandular synchronization requires a delicate balance of various physiological and energetic factors. When the pineal and pituitary glands achieve harmonic resonance, they begin a process of electromagnetic communication that stimulates the production of specialized compounds. This creates a cascade of biochemical reactions that affect the entire nervous system and endocrine network. The resulting state has been described in various traditions as the divine marriage or chemical wedding. The process involves the transformation of ordinary bodily fluids into highly refined substances that possess extraordinary properties. These sacred fluids, generated through the synchronized activity of the pineal and pituitary, contain unique molecular structures that can influence consciousness and facilitate spiritual awakening. Modern research has begun to identify some of these compounds, though their full significance remains to be understood by conventional science. This glandular alchemy produces what the ancients called chrism, or the Christ oil, a transformed cerebrospinal fluid that carries enhanced electromagnetic properties. This specialized fluid serves as a communication medium between the physical and spiritual aspects of our being. It functions as a superconductor of consciousness, allowing for expanded awareness and enhanced intuitive capabilities. The divine marriage of these glands represents a crucial stage in spiritual development, marking the beginning of a profound transformation in consciousness. This union creates the conditions necessary for the awakening of higher spiritual faculties and the activation of dormant areas of the brain. The process requires patience, dedication, and a deep understanding of the subtle energetic systems within the human body. The practical application of this knowledge involves specific techniques for stimulating and harmonizing these glandular centers. These include specialized breathing patterns, visualization, exercises, and physical postures that promote optimal glandular function. The goal is to create the perfect conditions for this divine marriage to occur naturally and safely, allowing the transformation process to unfold according to universal laws and individual readiness. This sacred union of the pineal and pituitary glands represents a fundamental aspect of neural alchemy, setting the stage for the deeper mysteries of spiritual transformation. Through their synchronized activity, these glands create the essential conditions for consciousness evolution and the awakening of our highest human potential. The pathway of light. The journey of spiritual ascension through neural alchemy follows a precise anatomical pathway that ancient mystics understood intimately. At the core of this sacred science lies the spinal column, containing exactly 33 vertebrae that serve as energetic gateways for the ascending life force. These vertebrae aren't merely structural components, but represent spiritual doorways through which consciousness itself evolves and expands. Along this central pathway run two primary energetic channels known as Ida and Pingala. These channels mirror the ancient caduceus symbol, two serpents intertwining around a central staff. Ida, the lunar channel, flows along the left side of the spine, while Pingala, the solar channel, courses along the right. These channels cross at specific points corresponding to major nerve plexuses and energetic centers within the body. Their dance creates a perfect balance of masculine and solar energy with feminine and lunar forces. The energy flow dynamics within these channels follow precise cosmic rhythms and breathing patterns. When properly activated, they generate an electromagnetic field that begins to charge the cerebrospinal fluid with heightened vital force. This process creates a luminous current that ancient texts often described as rivers of living water flowing up from the sacred waters of the sacrum to the higher brain centers. The anatomical correlations of this pathway reveal themselves through careful study of both modern neuroscience and ancient wisdom. The 33 vertebrae correspond to 33 degrees of spiritual initiation in many mystery traditions. The crossing points of Ida and Pingala align perfectly with major nerve ganglia and endocrine centers. These crossings create energetic vortices that ancient cultures identified as chakras or energy wheels. As the vital force ascends through the spinal pathway, it activates progressive stages of consciousness expansion. Each vertebral segment corresponds to specific aspects of human experience and spiritual unfoldment. The lower vertebrae relate to basic survival and procreative energies. The middle thoracic region correlates with heart qualities and emotional transformation. The cervical vertebrae connect to higher mental faculties and spiritual perception. The ultimate goal of activating this pathway is the illumination of the higher brain centers. When the energy successfully traverses all 33 gates, it reaches the sacred chamber of the skull, where the final alchemical transformation occurs. This process literally bathes the brain in energized cerebrospinal fluid, leading to activation of dormant neural capabilities and expanded states of consciousness. Understanding this pathway requires both scientific precision and spiritual sensitivity. The anatomical structure provides the framework, but the energy dynamics involve subtle forces beyond current scientific measurement. Ancient traditions encoded this knowledge in symbolic language, speaking of rivers of light, sacred oils, and divine nectar descending from heaven. These poetic descriptions accurately depict the actual physiological processes occurring during advanced stages of meditation and spiritual practice. The pathway of light represents humanity's bridge between earth and heaven, matter and spirit, lower and higher consciousness. Working with this system requires patience, dedication, and proper guidance. The 33 gates open sequentially, each building upon the previous activation. Premature forcing or improper practice can lead to energetic imbalances. This is why ancient mystery schools carefully guided initiates through each stage of the process. Regular meditation, specific breathing practices, and living in alignment with natural laws all support the proper activation of this pathway. As modern seekers rediscover these ancient truths, they find that the anatomy of enlightenment follows precise scientific principles while simultaneously transcending ordinary material understanding. The pathway of light stands as a testament to the profound wisdom of ancient spiritual scientists who mapped the geography of human transformation. The sacred chamber. Within the intricate design of human anatomy lies a mystical vault known as the sacred chamber, centered around the sacrum bone. A triangular structure ancient Egyptians considered the seat of power. This sacred bone, whose very name derives from the Latin word for sacred, serves as the foundation of the spiritual ascension process and houses the dormant potential for higher consciousness. The sacrum bone acts as a natural reservoir for the Christ oil, a refined spiritual essence that undergoes a remarkable 3-day transformation process. This process mirrors various spiritual traditions' accounts of transformation periods, including the 3 days between crucifixion and resurrection in Christian mythology. During this time, the sacred fluids within the body undergo an alchemical change, transforming from base material into spiritualized essence. The preservation of these sacred fluids is crucial to the transformative process. Ancient wisdom traditions taught specific practices to prevent the loss of vital essences, understanding that these fluids contain the seeds of spiritual awakening. The sacrum's unique hollow structure creates an ideal environment for this preservation, acting as a natural chalice for the metamorphosis of consciousness. The activation of the sacred chamber involves several physiological and energetic processes. The sacrum's nerve plexus, when properly stimulated, initiates a cascade of biochemical reactions that influence the entire nervous system. This activation process begins with gentle resonance in the base of the spine, gradually building in intensity as the energies are refined and elevated. Temperature plays a significant role in this sacred chamber's operation. The sacrum maintains a slightly elevated temperature compared to surrounding tissues, creating the perfect conditions for the alchemical transformation of neural fluids. This warmth, combined with the unique crystalline structure of the bone itself, generates subtle electromagnetic fields that influence consciousness. The sacred chamber's architecture includes specialized channels that facilitate the upward movement of transformed energies. These channels, known in various traditions as nadis or meridians, form a complex network originating from the sacral region and extending throughout the body. The sacrum's natural curves and foramina, openings, serve as conduits for these refined energies to flow upward toward higher centers of consciousness. Ancient texts often depicted the sacrum as a door or gateway, and modern research reveals why. The bone's unique structure contains perfectly aligned openings that, when activated, allow for the passage of subtle energies up the spinal column. This anatomical feature creates a natural pathway for the ascension of consciousness through the body's energy centers. The relationship between the sacred chamber and the spinal fluid system is particularly noteworthy. The cerebrospinal fluid, which bathes the entire central nervous system, finds its lowest point in the sacral region. This fluid serves as a medium for the transmission of subtle energies and carries the transformed Christ oil upward through the spinal column. Understanding and activating the sacred chamber requires a delicate balance of physical awareness and spiritual intention. The process involves specific breathing patterns, meditation techniques, and energetic practices that have been preserved through various esoteric traditions. These practices aim to awaken the dormant potential within the sacral region and initiate the alchemical transformation of consciousness. The sacred chamber represents more than just a physiological space. It embodies the intersection of matter and spirit, where physical processes support spiritual transformation. This understanding bridges ancient wisdom with modern scientific insights into neuroplasticity and consciousness evolution. The sacrum's role as a sacred vessel for transformation continues to reveal new layers of significance as we deepen our exploration of human potential and spiritual development. The Serpent Force. The concept of the Serpent Force, known in Eastern traditions as Kundalini, represents one of the most profound aspects of neural alchemy. This vital force lies dormant at the base of the spine, coiled like a sleeping serpent within the sacral region. When awakened through specific practices and the accumulation of Christ oil, it begins its ascent through a spinal column, initiating a transformative process that converts dense physical matter into refined spiritual energy. The awakening of this serpent force follows precise biological and energetic principles. As the sacred oils accumulate in the sacral chamber, they create an electromagnetic charge that serves as the initial catalyst for awakening. This process requires careful preparation and understanding, as premature or forced awakening can lead to significant physical and psychological disturbances. The transformation of matter to spirit occurs through a series of biochemical reactions, where the Christ oil acts as a supernatural conductor, facilitating the conversion of physical elements into subtle energy forms. Energy conservation plays a crucial role in this alchemical process. The vital force, normally expended through various physical and mental activities, must be carefully preserved and redirected inward. This conservation creates a reservoir of energy that fuels the serpent's ascent. Ancient texts speak of this practice through various metaphors and symbols, often referring to it as the preservation of the sacred seed or the pearl of great price. The upward movement of the serpent force follows a specific pattern, activating each vertebral gate in sequence. This activation process creates distinct sensations and experiences, often described as waves of energy, heat, or tinkling sensations moving up the spine. As this force rises, it purifies and transforms the nervous system, clearing energetic blockages and upgrading the body's electromagnetic circuitry. This purification process can manifest as temporary physical or emotional releases, which are natural aspects of the transformation. Safety protocols for working with the serpent force are essential. The process requires a balanced approach that includes proper preparation of the nervous system, emotional stability, and a pure intention. Traditional practices emphasize the importance of moral discipline, dietary considerations, and specific breathing techniques to create optimal conditions for this awakening. The body must be gradually prepared to handle the increased energy flow, much like an electrical system needs proper insulation and capacity for higher voltages. The serpent force's ascent corresponds to progressive stages of consciousness expansion. As it rises through each energy center, it activates different aspects of awareness and spiritual perception. This activation process correlates with specific brain changes, including increased neural connectivity and enhanced glandular function. The Christ oil acts as a specialized conductor, facilitating these neurological modifications and enabling higher states of consciousness to manifest in the physical brain structure. Modern scientific research has begun to validate aspects of this ancient knowledge through studies of cerebrospinal fluid dynamics, neuroplasticity, and consciousness research. The transformation of matter to spirit can be understood in terms of refined biochemical processes where conventional neural transmitters are upgraded to more sophisticated forms of information carriers. This biological evolution represents a blueprint for human potential, showing how consciousness can evolve beyond current limitations. The practical application of working with the serpent force requires patience, wisdom, and proper guidance. The process unfolds naturally when the right conditions are met, and forcing or rushing the awakening can lead to complications. Understanding the proper techniques for energy conservation, physical preparation, and mental stability creates a foundation for safe and successful transformation. This sacred science, when approached with reverence and understanding, opens doorways to expanded states of consciousness and spiritual realization that ancient traditions have long proclaimed as humanity's birthright. Neural evolution. The process of neural evolution, through spiritual practices and the activation of Christ oil, represents one of the most profound transformations available to human consciousness. This evolution goes far beyond conventional understanding of brain development, incorporating both biological and metaphysical aspects of human potential. The human brain, despite its remarkable capabilities, typically operates at a fraction of its full capacity. Through the careful cultivation and preservation of Christ oil, new neural pathways begin to form, creating expanded networks of consciousness previously dormant in the average person. This process initiates what ancient texts referred to as the enlightenment of the mind, a literal illumination of neural circuits through the refined spiritual fluids of the body. As these new pathways develop, practitioners often report enhanced cognitive abilities, including improved memory, heightened intuition, and expanded awareness of subtle energies. This isn't merely a subjective experience, but reflects actual changes in brain structure and function. The cerebrospinal fluid, charged with spiritual essence, begins to activate dormant areas of the brain, particularly in the frontal lobes and temporal regions associated with higher consciousness and spiritual awareness. The integration of these new neural pathways requires careful attention and specific techniques. Traditional practices like meditation, breath work, and energy circulation exercises help stabilize and strengthen these emerging connections. The process mirrors natural brain development but accelerates and enhances it through conscious direction of spiritual energies. This creates a positive feedback loop where enhanced awareness leads to better energy management, which in turn supports further neural development. One of the most remarkable aspects of this evolution is the development of new sensory capabilities. As the brain's capacity expands, practitioners often report increased sensitivity to subtle energies, enhanced electromagnetic perception, and even the ability to detect previously imperceptible frequencies of light and sound. These aren't supernatural powers, but rather the activation of latent human capabilities through the refined chemistry of Christ oil. The role of the vagus nerve becomes particularly significant in this process, acting as a primary conductor for the distribution of spiritually charged cerebrospinal fluid throughout the nervous system. This massive nerve network, often called the wandering nerve, creates a communication highway between the brain and body's major organs, facilitating the integration of higher consciousness into physical function. Brain capacity enhancement through these practices isn't limited to spiritual perception. Many practitioners report improved analytical abilities, enhanced creativity, and better emotional regulation. The Christ oil appears to optimize overall brain function while simultaneously opening new domains of awareness. This dual action of enhancement and expansion represents a unique feature of spiritual neural alchemy. The transformation requires patience and consistent practice. Neural pathways don't develop overnight, and the integration of new capabilities follows a natural progression. The process respects biological rhythms while accelerating normal evolutionary trajectories. Regular meditation, mindful movement practices, and specific breathing techniques support this development, creating optimal conditions for neural evolution. Understanding the science behind these changes helps practitioners navigate the process more effectively. The brain's neuroplasticity, its ability to form new neural connections throughout life, provides the biological foundation for this evolution. The Christ oil acts as a catalyst, providing the energetic and chemical environment necessary for accelerated growth and reorganization of neural networks. This evolution of consciousness through neural alchemy represents one of the most significant opportunities for human development. It bridges ancient wisdom with modern neuroscience, offering a practical path to expanded awareness and enhanced human capability. The process remains both deeply personal and universal, accessible to any dedicated practitioner while manifesting uniquely in each individual according to their particular purpose and path. Biblical parallels. The intricate relationship between sacred texts and human anatomy reveals profound connections that extend far beyond mere metaphor. The journey of Jesus, as depicted in biblical narratives, mirrors the neural pathways and transformative processes occurring within our own bodies. This parallel understanding opens new dimensions of interpretation that bridge ancient wisdom with modern neuroscience. The biblical account of Jesus' life contains numerous anatomical correlations that were carefully encoded by ancient mystics. The manger where Jesus was born represents the solar plexus, the primary energy center where divine consciousness first manifests in physical form. The three wise men symbolize the three major glands, pineal, pituitary, and thyroid, that play crucial roles in the production and distribution of the sacred oils. The Jordan River, where Jesus was baptized, corresponds to the cerebral spinal fluid flowing through our nervous system. This divine water carries vital nutrients and electromagnetic charges throughout the body, purifying and preparing the system for higher consciousness. John the Baptist, who performed this sacred ritual, represents the medulla oblongata, the gateway through which this vital fluid must pass. The wilderness, where Jesus spent 40 days, mirrors the period of purification and transformation that occurs within the nervous system. During this time, the sacred oils begin their ascent, facing resistance from established neural patterns, symbolized by the temptations of Satan. This process requires tremendous discipline and awareness to overcome the body's natural tendencies and achieve higher states of consciousness. The 12 disciples represent the 12 cranial nerves, each with its specific function in conveying sensory and motor information. Just as Jesus taught and transformed his disciples, The awakened Christ consciousness gradually influences and elevates the function of these neural pathways. The betrayal by Judas symbolizes the necessary sacrifice of lower impulses to achieve spiritual elevation. The crucifixion itself holds deep anatomical significance. The cross represents the intersection of the vertical spinal column with the horizontal nervous system branches. Golgotha, the place of the skull, directly correlates to the crown chakra where the final transformation occurs. The 3 days in the tomb mirror the alchemical process within the third ventricle of the brain, where the sacred oils undergo their final transformation. The resurrection represents the ultimate achievement of neural alchemy, the complete transformation of consciousness through the activation and elevation of the sacred oils. This process literally creates new neural pathways and expanded awareness, allowing direct communion with higher realms of consciousness. The ascension symbolizes the permanent establishment of this elevated state. Throughout the biblical narrative, we find numerous references to oil, particularly in relation to anointment and healing. These passages speak directly to the sacred fluids produced within our own bodies. The parables of Jesus often contained coded references to this internal process, using agricultural and natural imagery to convey deep physiological truths. The kingdom of heaven that Jesus spoke of isn't a distant realm, but rather an internal state achieved through the proper cultivation and elevation of these sacred oils. When he said the kingdom of heaven is within you, he was providing a literal anatomical truth, pointing to the transformation possible within our own nervous systems. Understanding these biblical parallels provides a profound framework for personal transformation. It reveals that the ancient texts weren't merely recording historical events, but providing detailed instructions for neural alchemy. This knowledge, hidden in plain sight for centuries, offers a practical pathway to elevated consciousness and spiritual awakening. These correlations between scripture and physiology demonstrate the remarkable sophistication of ancient wisdom traditions. They understood the intimate connection between physical processes and spiritual development, encoding this knowledge in stories and symbols that could survive through generations. As we decode these parallels, we unlock the potential for our own transformation through the sacred science of neural alchemy. The inner Holy Land. The profound mystical teachings of ancient traditions reveal that the human brain and body constitute a living map of sacred geography. This inner Holy Land contains all the sacred sites, rivers and mountains mentioned in religious texts, but on a microscopic and energetic level within our own neural architecture. The geography of the brain holds remarkable parallels to ancient spiritual cartography. The 4 ventricles of the brain correspond to the 4 rivers mentioned in Genesis flowing from Eden. The third ventricle, situated in the center of the brain, represents the mystical Jordan River, the site of spiritual baptism and transformation. The cerebellum at the base of the brain is often called the Mountain of the Skull or Golgotha in esoteric traditions. Hermetic teachings emphasize as above, so below. The principle that macrocosmic universal patterns are reflected in the microcosm of human anatomy. The skull itself represents the dome of heaven, while various brain regions correspond to celestial bodies and constellations. The right and left hemispheres mirror the cosmic duality of sun and moon energies. This anatomical astronomy allows initiates to work with powerful universal forces through conscious attention to specific brain centers. The symbolism of milk and honey, mentioned repeatedly in sacred texts as flowing in the Promised Land, relates directly to secretions in the brain. The whitish cerebrospinal fluid represents the milk, while the golden Christ oil produced in the pineal and pituitary glands is the honey. These precious fluids nourish and transform neural tissues when properly cultivated through spiritual practice. Ancient mystery schools taught this sacred brain geography as part of their highest initiations. The Egyptian, Greek, and Essene traditions all maintained detailed knowledge of the correspondence between external holy sites and internal neural locations. Their temple architectures and ritual practices were designed to activate specific brain regions and facilitate the flow of cerebrospinal fluid and Christ oil. The pituitary gland was known as the sacred cave where divine nectar accumulates. The pineal gland was the stone the builders rejected that becomes the capstone of consciousness. The lateral ventricles were the wings of the soul allowing spiritual flight. Each anatomical feature had its esoteric significance carefully preserved in symbol and ceremony. This inner mapping extends beyond the brain to the entire central nervous system. The 33 vertebrae of the spine represent stages on the journey to enlightenment. The sacrum, or sacred bone, at the base contains powerful transformative energies. The vagus nerve provides a direct connection between brain and body, heaven and earth. Understanding this sacred geography within ourselves reveals the true meaning of pilgrimage. While visiting external holy sites can be meaningful, the real journey occurs in consciousness as we activate and integrate these inner sacred spaces. The primitive brainstem is our Egypt of material consciousness. The highly developed frontal lobes represent the promised land of spiritual awareness. The inner Holy Land teachings remind us that we need not search outside ourselves for divine connection. All the power of sacred sites and substances exists within our own neural anatomy, waiting to be recognized and awakened. Through meditation, breathwork, and energy practices focused on these brain regions, we can experience the same illumination that initiated adepts accessed in ancient times. This knowledge was carefully preserved in the mystery school's oral traditions and encoded symbolically in architecture, art, and scripture. Now modern neuroscience is rediscovering many of these subtle energy centers and pathways, providing scientific validation for what the ancients knew through direct experience. The brain truly is a holy land, and by understanding its sacred geography, we can navigate the territory of higher consciousness. The vagus mystery. The vagus nerve, often called the wandering nerve, represents one of the most profound mysteries in the spiritual anatomy of transformation. This remarkable neural pathway, crossing at the critical 33rd vertebral point, serves as both a physical and metaphysical bridge between our earthly existence and higher consciousness. The ancient wisdom traditions recognize this nerve as the primary channel through which divine energy flows, marking it as the biological foundation for spiritual awakening. The significance of the 33rd crossing cannot be understated in the process of neural alchemy. This specific point correlates with the symbolic crucifixion in esoteric teachings, where the mundane consciousness undergoes a death and rebirth process. The vagus nerve's extensive network, reaching from the brainstem through the throat and heart to the abdomen, creates a comprehensive communication system that ancient mystics understood as the path of ascension. Within the cranial nerve networks, the vagus nerve holds a unique position as the master regulator of our parasympathetic nervous system. This system, responsible for rest, digestion, and healing, plays a crucial role in the transformation of consciousness. When the Christ oil begins its ascent through the spinal column, it activates specific points along the vagus nerve, triggering profound physiological and spiritual changes. These activation points correspond to the traditional chakra system, creating a bridge between ancient wisdom and modern neuroscience. The symbolic crucifixion, viewed through the lens of neural alchemy, represents the intersection of vertical and horizontal energy flows within the body. The vertical flow occurs along the spine through the cerebrospinal fluid, while the horizontal flow manifests through the vagus nerve's branching network. This crossing creates an energetic matrix that, when properly activated, facilitates the transformation of consciousness. The neurological implications of this process extend far beyond simple biological functions. As the Christ oil ascends and interacts with the vagus nerve system, it initiates a cascade of electromagnetic changes within the brain and nervous system. These changes alter the frequency patterns of neural firing, leading to expanded states of consciousness and enhanced perception. The ancient mystery schools understood this process as the awakening of dormant spiritual faculties. The vagus nerve's role in emotional regulation and intuitive perception provides the biological foundation for higher spiritual experiences. Through its extensive connections to the heart, lungs, and digestive system, It creates a complex feedback loop that integrates physical, emotional, and spiritual experiences. This integration is essential for the complete transformation of consciousness that neural alchemy seeks to achieve. Traditional texts often describe a burning sensation or intense energy movement along the spine during spiritual awakening. This phenomenon can be understood through the vagus nerve's interaction with the Christ oil, as the sacred fluid activates and energizes the nerve's extensive network. The resulting sensations and experiences correspond to what mystics have described as the baptism by fire, or the descent of the Holy Spirit. The 33rd crossing point holds particular significance as it represents the completion of the first phase of transformation. This point, where the vagus nerve interfaces with the high cervical spine, creates a gateway for the Christ oil to enter the cranial chamber. The number 33 appears repeatedly in sacred texts and mystical traditions, reflecting its importance in the process of spiritual metamorphosis. Understanding the vagus mystery provides a scientific framework for practices that enhance spiritual development. Conscious breathing, meditation, and specific sound vibrations can stimulate the vagus nerve, preparing it for the alchemical transformation. These practices, when combined with the proper preservation and activation of Christ oil, create optimal conditions for spiritual awakening and neural evolution. The upper room. The concept of the upper room holds profound significance in both spiritual texts and neurological understanding. This sacred chamber, located at the crown of our physical temple, houses 12 cranial nerves that serve as divine messengers between our consciousness and the physical world. These 12 cranial nerves mirror the 12 disciples in spiritual teachings, each carrying specific functions that bridge our internal and external experiences. The cranial nerves form an intricate network that enables our sensory experiences, motor functions, and autonomous processes. From the olfactory nerve that processes our sense of smell to the vagus nerve that influences our emotional well-being, each nerve plays a crucial role in our physical and spiritual evolution. This biological arrangement is not merely coincidental, but represents a divine blueprint for consciousness expansion. When the Christ oil ascends through the spinal column and reaches the upper room, it initiates a profound transformation in these cranial nerves. The sacred fluid, now charged with spiritual potential, bathes these neural pathways in golden light, enhancing their function and expanding their capacity for divine communication. This process creates new neural networks that can process higher frequencies of consciousness and spiritual information. The integration of spiritual awareness through the cranial nerves manifests in enhanced sensory perception, intuitive abilities, and expanded consciousness. The optic nerves may begin to perceive subtle energies, while the auditory nerves might attune to higher vibrational frequencies. This transformation explains many mystical experiences reported throughout history, including visions, prophetic dreams, and divine guidance. Consciousness activation in the upper room occurs through a precise alchemical process. As the Christ oil saturates the brain tissue, it creates a crystalline structure within the neurons, allowing for clearer transmission of spiritual information. This crystalline network acts as a cosmic antenna, enabling direct communication with higher realms of consciousness. The pineal and pituitary glands, now fully activated, work in harmony to maintain this elevated state of awareness. The upper room also represents the meeting point between individual consciousness and universal wisdom. When properly activated, this sacred space becomes a temple of divine communion where personal identity merges with cosmic awareness. This state transcends ordinary perception and enables direct experience of spiritual truths. The 12 cranial nerves, now illuminated by the Christ oil, facilitate this expanded state of being. Ancient traditions speak of the upper room as the place where divine wisdom descends to meet human consciousness. This description accurately reflects the neurological process of higher consciousness integration through the cranial nerves. Each nerve becomes a channel for divine intelligence, transforming our perception and understanding of reality. This transformation is not merely philosophical, but creates measurable changes in brain function and neural organization. The process of maintaining this elevated state requires dedicated practice and understanding. Regular meditation, conscious breathing, and specific energy practices help sustain the activation of the upper room. These practices support the continued flow of Christ oil and maintain the crystalline structure within the neural network. The result is a permanent expansion of consciousness and ongoing spiritual evolution. Through this sacred process, the upper room becomes a living temple where heaven and earth meet within our own being. The 12 cranial nerves, fully activated and transformed, enable us to live as divine beings in human form. This biological and spiritual transformation represents the ultimate purpose of neural alchemy, the conscious evolution of humanity toward its highest potential. The upper room, therefore, serves as both the culmination of the alchemical process and the beginning of a new phase in human consciousness. Cellular regeneration. The profound impact of Christ oil on cellular regeneration represents one of the most fascinating intersections of spiritual practice and biological transformation. This sacred substance, produced through the refined alchemical processes within our own bodies, demonstrates remarkable properties that influence our physical, mental, and spiritual well-being at the cellular level. The Christ oil, also known as the golden oil or sacred chrism, contains unique molecular properties that science is only beginning to understand. When this precious fluid is activated and properly circulated through the body's subtle energy systems, it initiates a cascade of regenerative processes. The oil's high-frequency vibrations resonate with our cellular structure, promoting repair and renewal at the most fundamental biological level. Research into the properties of cerebrospinal fluid, which shares many characteristics with the Christ oil, has revealed its capacity to influence stem cell production and neural regeneration. This golden elixir carries specific proteins, growth factors, and bioactive compounds that support cellular healing and rejuvenation. When the Christ oil is activated through spiritual practices and proper energy circulation, these regenerative properties are significantly enhanced. The transformation process begins at the cellular membrane, where the Christ oil's unique vibrational signature facilitates improved cellular communication and nutrient absorption. This enhanced cellular function leads to more efficient energy production within the mitochondria, our cellular powerhouses. The result is an increase in vital life force energy, known in various traditions as prana, chi, or divine light. Modern scientific studies have documented measurable changes in practitioners who have activated their internal Christ oil production. These changes include increased telomerase activity, which helps maintain the protective caps on our chromosomes and potentially extend cellular lifespan. Additionally, researchers have observed enhanced neural plasticity, improved immune function, and accelerated tissue repair in individuals who have mastered these ancient practices. The healing mechanisms of the Christ oil operate on multiple levels simultaneously. At the physical level, it promotes tissue repair and cellular regeneration. On the energetic level, it helps clear blockages in the subtle body systems and promotes balanced energy flow. Spiritually, it facilitates the integration of higher frequencies of consciousness into our physical form, leading to profound transformation. The biological transformation initiated by the Christ oil extends beyond mere physical healing. It creates an environment conducive to the expression of our highest genetic potential, what some mystics call our divine blueprint. This process involves the activation of dormant DNA sequences and the optimization of genetic expression patterns, leading to enhanced vitality and consciousness expansion. Evidence for these transformative effects can be found in both ancient texts and contemporary research. Sacred writings across various traditions describe the regenerative properties of this golden elixir, often using symbolic language to convey its profound effects. Modern scientific investigations, particularly in the fields of neuroscience and epigenetics, are beginning to validate these ancient claims through empirical observation and measurement. The regenerative process requires careful attention to certain practices and protocols. These include maintaining proper spinal alignment, engaging in specific breathing exercises, and following dietary guidelines that support the production and preservation of the Christ oil. The transformation unfolds gradually, with each cell in the body being progressively upgraded and refined through continued practice and dedication. Through understanding and working with the Christ oil's regenerative properties, practitioners can facilitate their own healing and transformation at the deepest cellular level. This process represents the practical application of spiritual wisdom for physical renewal and consciousness evolution, bridging the ancient knowledge of sacred alchemy with modern scientific understanding of cellular biology and regeneration. The ongoing effects of cellular regeneration through Christ oil activation contribute to increased vitality, enhanced cognitive function, improved emotional balance, and accelerated spiritual development. This sacred substance truly represents the physical manifestation of divine healing potential within the human body, offering a pathway to profound transformation and renewal at every level of our being. Spiritual rebirth. The ultimate culmination of the Christ oil mysteries manifests in the profound transformation known as spiritual rebirth. This process represents the highest achievement of neural alchemy, where cerebrospinal fluid undergoes a remarkable metamorphosis that impacts both physical matter and consciousness itself. The ancient wisdom traditions have long spoken of this rebirth in metaphorical terms, but modern understanding allows us to bridge the gap between esoteric knowledge and physiological reality. The cerebrospinal fluid, often called the river of life, carries within it the potential for extraordinary transformation. When the previous stages of neural alchemy have been properly executed, this sacred fluid begins to exhibit new properties. Its molecular structure actually changes, creating what the ancients termed the golden oil or Christ oil. This transformed substance carries a higher vibrational frequency that affects the entire nervous system, particularly the brain and spinal cord. This biological alchemy initiates a cascade of effects throughout the body-mind system. The transformed cerebrospinal fluid begins to bathe neural tissues in its enhanced properties, leading to increased coherence in brainwave patterns and enhanced neural connectivity. Practitioners often report experiences of expanded consciousness, accompanied by profound insights and a deep sense of connection to the divine. The physical body itself undergoes subtle but meaningful changes as cells respond to the elevated energetic environment. The integration of this transformed state requires dedicated practice and awareness. As the new neural pathways established through the alchemical process become permanent, the practitioner must learn to operate from this elevated platform of consciousness, while maintaining practical functionality in daily life. This integration phase often brings challenges as old patterns of thinking and being naturally resist the new operating system being installed. Regular meditation and specific breathing practices help stabilize the transformation. The vagus nerve plays a crucial role in this integration, serving as a bridge between higher consciousness and physical embodiment. Through conscious attention to this process, practitioners can maintain and deepen their transformed state while expanding their capacity for spiritual perception and expression. The cellular regeneration triggered by the transformed cerebrospinal fluid continues long after the initial breakthrough. This ongoing process gradually refines the physical vehicle, making it more capable of sustaining higher frequencies of consciousness. The body's natural healing and regenerative capabilities are enhanced, and many practitioners report improvements in overall health and vitality. Maintaining this transformed state requires careful attention to lifestyle factors. Diet, sleep patterns, and environmental influences all play important roles in supporting or hindering the stability of the spiritual rebirth. The ancient traditions provided detailed guidelines for this maintenance phase, many of which align with modern understanding of neuroplasticity and cellular health. This rebirth represents not just a personal transformation, but a contribution to collective evolution. As individuals undergo this alchemical process, they become living bridges between physical and spiritual realms, helping to anchor higher frequencies of consciousness into the material world. This was the essential message encoded in many ancient spiritual traditions, that individual transformation serves the greater evolution of human consciousness. The mysteries of spiritual rebirth through cerebrospinal alchemy continue to unfold as more practitioners engage with these ancient practices in the modern context. The fusion of spiritual wisdom with scientific understanding creates a powerful framework for approaching this profound transformation. As we decode more of these mysteries, we open new possibilities for human evolution and the realization of our highest potential. Understanding and experiencing spiritual rebirth through these alchemical processes offers a practical path to the heights of human potential described in ancient texts. This transformation, while deeply personal, follows universal principles that can be studied, understood, and applied with proper guidance and dedication. The Christ oil mysteries thus provide a systematic approach to achieving the highest aims of spiritual development while remaining grounded in physical reality.